Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sharpening Report. I'm your host, Josh Peck. Very glad to be joining you today. So I have a topic that I think is really interesting, really important, and something that even people who believe in the pre-trib rapture may not have come across before. I think it's a really strong argument. Now, I want to preface that by saying this is obviously for YouTube. There's going to be people of all sorts of different belief systems who are going to view this video. And if you're in one of the other Rapture camps, I'm glad you're here. Nobody's going to argue with you. I mean, they might in the comment section, but nobody who represents what I do, Daily Renegade, Sharpening Report, no one's going to give you a hard time. We're not argumentative. But we do believe what we believe. And we think that, we as Christians can have these discussions and talk about this stuff without it having to turn into ridicule or name calling or really just hatred. And for some reason around this one topic, the timing of the rapture, there is a lot of that, which is funny because we all typically agree that there is a rapture. Really, the thing that we disagree on is the timing of it, and why is that such a contentious topic? And I do believe there's reasons for that, but I'm going to save that for a different video in the future. But just suffice to say, if you are in one of the other camps, hey, I was there too. I used to, actually, every single one of the Rapture belief camps, there's 4 of them, 5 of them, something like that. At one time or another, I believed in every single one. Not all at one time, one after the other, but I was raised pre-trib. And then I got into, I don't know the exact order, but I got into all the others. Post-trib, mid-trib, pre-wrath, even a progressive thing where maybe there's multiple raptures. And finally, I got to a point where it was like, at the time I was much younger, and I was thinking, I'm so argumentative as to every one of these beliefs when I'm in the belief, and then when I'm out of it, I'm argumentative, for the new belief that I'm in. I don't really know what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying that everybody is like that, but that was me. And so for a few years, I just decided, okay, if God wants me to know, he'll let me know. He'll prompt me to some resources or something, but I'm not going to focus on this for a while because in all reality, in all honesty, I was too immature to handle this topic because I was snapping at people online. And this was before I got into ministry. This was years and years and years ago, a long time ago. But I was just too immature, and I had some growing up to do. So God brought me through that, and then there was a time where this topic came back up, and it just felt like it was time to really delve into it with more of a sober mind. More of a I don't have a preference here. Whatever the truth is, that's what I want. Whatever camp. I'm not in a camp. Just whatever the truth is. I don't care what it is. Whatever the truth is, that's what I want. And so I started looking into it more through that lens. And, after years of study, I have come to believe, and I'm firmly rooted in this now, but I believe that the pre-tribulation rapture view is the correct one. Now, again, is it impossible that there might be some evidence that I haven't seen that could at least make me rethink that? No, it's not impossible, but of all the available evidence that I've seen, and it's years of looking at the arguments of all of these camps. I feel that in my mind, it's a done deal. Like in my mind, there are too many things that the other camps can't answer. Or at least for me, can't answer satisfactorily, whereas pre-trib can, and then the ones in the other camps, and again, I was a member of all these camps before, but when they bring up something, well, how does pre-trib answer this? Like, I can't be pre-trib because they don't have a good answer for this. Well, all of those, typically what I see is a lot of straw man stuff where they'll give weak answers and say, well, pre-trib believes this, pre-trib believes that. But then, when you look at what they say pre-trib teaches, it's not exactly correct. So I've seen a lot of that. I should mention too, I'm working at Prophecy Watchers now, website prophecywatchers.com, and we are working on a documentary about the pre-trib view. There was a few years ago, there was a documentary that was put out which is free on YouTube that you can find, but it's 7 problems with the pre-trib view or something. Well, we're creating a response to that because these aren't really problems. A lot of it is some misrepresentation of what we actually believe and how, like, what we actually teach and how we would explain it. So again, we're not coming against these people or anything, but we want to provide some answers to these things so there's just not more confusion out there in the world. So that's a lot of what this video is. Now, I want to say too, this video is only going to deal with one thing. And as of right now, we're in the early pre-production phase of the movie, so I don't even know if this is making it in the movie or not. So I'm not saying that this is an excerpt from the movie at all. It's not. But I will tell you where this information comes from. It does come from something that is going to be released very, very soon, at the time of this recording. But I also want to say too that typically when I do sharpening report episodes, I split them up into 2 parts because we've had a lot of censorship issues with YouTube, and so we usually post the full video at dailyrenegade.com. I'm going to post this whole video for everybody this time for this, because for one thing, there's really no place to split it up, not really well where it wouldn't be jarring. I am going to take a pause somewhere near the middle of the video to talk about Daily Renegade and what we do before we get back into the information. But just know, typically I don't put full videos up because of censorship issues. I think we're safe on this one, but it's still a little risky. But I think it's going to be okay. But you still want to go to dailyrenegade.com and get a subscription, because even on the rare occasion that I do put a full video up, you get early access to everything, usually a week or 2 in advance. I've gotten a little busy the past couple of weeks working on a new book, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. But that's why this is only a week in advance. But usually everybody there gets their videos a week in advance. So if you're watching this on YouTube today, you could have had this a week earlier. So go to dailyrenegade.com and get a subscription. All right, I'll talk about all that more later, but I think this intro is already too long. But so the information that follows comes from my new 2-volume book set, 2-volume set, called Forgotten Prophecies of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I was originally going to make this 1 volume, just one big book, but it turned out to be 760 pages, and just with printing costs and everything, it wasn't going to work. I'm going to be self-publishing this. You know, some people like Gary Wayne, he goes through a traditional publisher, so they have ways that they can cut costs and stuff, but I have to go based on what their set price list is. So it just wouldn't have worked. So instead, I'm going to split it into 2 volumes. Each are about 360, 370, 380 pages, somewhere around there. And those will be available really in just a few days. I'm just waiting on the final book cover, and then Amazon has a process by which they review the book for 72 hours or so, and then it's available. And that's Amazon. But I would say, though, hold off on Amazon, because, so this 2-volume set is an updated and expanded edition of my previous book, The Lost Prophecies of Qumran. And at this time, right now, again, I'm only days away from the release of this. So all this information is in this book with footnotes and everything and a lot more. When it is released, the best place to get it will be prophecywatchers.com. So what follows is what I believe to be one of the best pieces of evidence supporting a pre-tribulation view of the rapture. It is not the only view, and I certainly would not hinge my entire belief system on this one interpretation. So if somebody were able to debunk everything I'm saying here, I would say, okay, well, and if their debunking is true, then I would say, okay, well, I'm not going to use that anymore as one of the reasons that I believe this, but I would still believe in Pretrib Rapture because there's like hundreds of other reasons too. But this one, people have tried to debunk. People already have many, many times, and I've never seen an even good attempt at it. There's one little sticking point with it that I will explain, but there's 2 very easy, very reasonable ways out of this one sticking point, and the sticking point isn't even really a sticking point. But I'll get into all that. So hopefully, after I go through all this information, you'll at least understand a bit more why so many Christians hold this view. And I think if we can understand each other a little bit more, maybe there won't be so much infighting about it. Because ultimately, we're all Christians. We all believe in Jesus. We all believe that Jesus is returning. And we can hold to that. Doesn't mean that we can't talk about this stuff. We should be able to talk about it civilly, even if we don't agree. So let's get into it. So there's and a lot of this revolves around the identity of the 24 elders, which that might at first seem kind of strange. Like, what do the 24 elders have anything to do with the rapture? I've been reading the book of Revelation since I could read it. It's always been the book that I've been most fascinated by. Still am. And there's just a lot of weird things in there that it's like, I wonder what that means. What does that mean? 24 elders is one of them. So there are many reasons to believe in a pre-trib rapture, but one main point of view that supports this view is the identity of these 24 elders in Revelation. And I actually believe that they represent the raptured church, and I will explain why. If I'm correct, then this would prove that the church is already in heaven prior to the breaking of the first seal, meaning that the first seal likely represents the Antichrist and the confirmation of the covenant with many. Of course, that would come a little after that, probably, but because the confirmation of the covenant with many is what starts the tribulation. So, if this is true, if I can show you that the 24 elders are or at least represent the raptured church. And I take a literal view of this. I have no problem with the fact that there are probably 24 specific elders there. And I know some people say, well, isn't it the apostles and the patriarchs? I don't know about that. And I'll explain why. Because we seem to have a plan laid out for the patriarchs that don't exactly match the plan laid out for Christians on how they receive their rewards and their role in the millennium and stuff like that. So I'm not exactly sure there, but if I can show you that the church is already in heaven prior to the breaking of the first seal, prior to the beginning of the tribulation, if I can show you that the church, that the 24 elders is the church, and in Revelation 5, when they talk about the 24 elders, if that's the church and they already have their rewards, it's pre-trib. It has to be. So I'm going to try to do that. So again, if this is true, it would also show that Jesus breaks the first seal at the start of the tribulation period rather than right after his resurrection and ascension 2,000 years ago. Because there is this belief, I'll get into it a little. Well, actually, I get into it in the book, but previous to this. But there is a belief out there that the seals started to be broken right after Jesus's death and resurrection. I don't believe that, and I have very good friends that I respect a lot, and in many ways are a lot smarter than me, that believe that. I just don't agree. I don't agree. In the book, I do get into it. I get into it before this section, so if you want a video on that, I can do another video on that, but we're not going to cover that here. This would also obviously have the added benefit of proving that pre-tribulation rapture is indeed accurate and consistent with the prophetic teachings of the Bible. So first, let's start with the term elder. Now, that has been used to define Jewish leaders in the Old Testament and the Gospels, but it's also used for leaders in the church, because there are 24 elders, so we want to know what an elder is. It has been used to define Jewish leaders in the Old Testament and the Gospels, but also used for leaders in the church, such as Acts 15. Here's a few examples from that chapter, and one example from a later chapter. So Acts 15:2 says, "When therefore Paul and Barnabas had no small dissension and disputation with them, he determined that Paul and Barnabas and certain other of them should go up to Jerusalem unto the apostles and elders about this question." Acts 15:22 says, "Then pleased it the apostles and elders with the whole church to send chosen men of their own company to Antioch with Paul and Barnabas, namely Judas, surnamed Barsabas, and Silas, chief men among the brethren." And I got a question for you too. Since it says apostles and elders, does that mean these are two distinct people? Like, is it two different sets of people? because yeah, Jesus says that you'll be seated with me, and he says that to some of the apostles and stuff. But we know that, like, as Christians, we all get to be seated with him, and we get that from Ephesians. So does this mean that some of the apostles have to be among the 24 elders? I don't know. I honestly don't. I don't know, because this term elder. Well, let's continue. Let's continue before we get too far ahead of ourselves. So Acts 20:17 says, "And from Miletus he sent to Ephesus and called the elders of the church." Again, that's Acts 20:17. Also, I should mention, if you want the notes for this whole study that we're going through right now, you can get them at dailyrenegade.com. If you're a member, you can download the PDF, and it has all the information, all the footnotes, everything in PDF format, so you can study that on your own. But this shows us that the word elder just means a leader within a particular group. So to help find out who the 24 elders are, we can determine who they are not. Now, some have suggested, as I mentioned before, that they are comprised of the 12 apostles and 12 Old Testament patriarchs. Now, this sounds convincing at first, and I thought this for many years as well, but upon further study, I don't necessarily believe that the 24 elders represent anyone from the Old Testament. Old Testament saints will receive their resurrection at a different time than church-age Christians. And to prove this, we can look at Daniel 12:1-2. Excuse me. Excuse me. So it says, "At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt." So here, the tribulation is described first. Then, thy people, referring to Israel, shall be delivered. Okay, we know that from Revelation. We know when that happens. And then after that, the dead will be raised, some to life and some to shame. So at the time this was written, there was no church. Those raised to everlasting life must be the Old Testament saints. And this clearly occurs after the tribulation. We also read about this in Revelation. So Revelation 20:4. "And I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which they had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their forehead or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years." So this verse describes a moment of time after the tribulation. Notice that people are already sitting on the thrones at this point. These have been given the right to judge. So here's what one Bible commentary notes. This is from the Benson commentary. When it says, it says, "Sat upon them and judgment was given to them." 1 Corinthians 6:2. "Error and sin being restrained, the reign of righteousness succeeds, and the administration of justice and judgment is given to the saints of the Most High." Daniel 7:22. So this is likely describing the same 24 elders from Revelation 5. Now, of course, we know that we all get to sit on thrones. But these are probably specific 24 elders that are recognized for a specific reason that we'll get into a little bit later, because this has to do with the structure of the heavenly temple and everything like that. But after we see the thrones, there is a resurrection. Now, this isn't the resurrection of church age believers. Rather, it is a resurrection of believers who were killed during the tribulation. Now, adding this to Daniel 12:1-2, we can assume that the Old Testament saints will be resurrected at this time as well. So what this means is, and let's look at that again. I just want to read it again. "And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given to them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received the mark on the forehead in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years." We all get to live and reign with Christ for 1,000 years, but we see two different groups of people here. The thrones and they that sat upon them, that's one group of people. They're already there, right? And judgment was given to them. And then we have another group, and we know that the church, we that get to sit on the thrones and reign with Christ, we get to judge the angels. And judgment was given to them. So that all makes sense. That's that first group. That's us. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and all that stuff. Now, these would be the believers during the tribulation. Now, what connects them with Israel? Well, it seems during the tribulation, the church age is over. So it seems like it, in a way, goes back, and this isn't for salvation. This isn't, the way that people have gotten salvation has always been the same. You got to believe in the Messiah. But for a time, the focus is back on Israel for that last week of Israel. So during that time, the people that die then, they would be grouped in with the Old Testament believers because this would be it would be the same as if a believing proselyte died during the time of Israel before Christ, before the church age. They still go to heaven. They still have wonderful things. But these are two distinct sets of people. We got thrones and they that sat on them, and judgment was given unto them. That's a promise that we get as believers in the church age. And then the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus. Well, that's during the tribulation, but that would tie in with the 70 weeks of Daniel, so that they would be lumped in with the Old Testament saints as well. And their resurrection comes after the tribulation. So we went through the commentary. Okay, so again, after we see the thrones, there's a resurrection. Now, again, this isn't the resurrection of church age believers, because they were already on the thrones and judgment was already given to them, but it's a resurrection of believers who were killed during the tribulation. And then again, adding that to Daniel 12, 1 through 2, we can assume that the Old Testament saints would be resurrected at the same time as well, because this is this is another week of Israel, of Daniel. So the 24 elders apparently seem to have nothing to do with Israel, and the church is already raptured by the time Revelation 20, verse 4, and Daniel 12, 1 through 2 take place. Now, some believe that the 24 elders are angels, but I think the fact that they're sitting actually proves otherwise. That might seem like a small detail, but angels were never promised that they would be able to sit with Christ like this. Anytime an angel is mentioned at the same time as the throne of God, the angel is always standing. Only redeemed humans are offered the privilege to sit, rule, and reign with Christ. So sitting and standing indicate authority and position. Even in the Gospel of Luke, the high-ranking angel Gabriel introduces himself as an angel who stands. It might seem like a really small detail to us, but it was really important to them back then. It was a sign of something. It was a sign of authority and things. So Luke 1:19 says, "And the angel answering said unto him, I am Gabriel, that stands in the presence of God, and am sent to speak unto thee, and to show thee these glad tidings." So because of this standing versus sitting issue, I believe that we can safely rule out Old Testament saints and angels as possible identifications for the 24 elders. Now, of course, that's not all. To properly identify the 24 elders, we need to examine what's actually written about them. We can't just exclude everything and then say, well, the church is the only thing that's left, so it must be that. I started with that because I wanted to get through some of the main arguments first. A lot of people think they're angelic beings. A lot of people think it's a mix of the apostles and the patriarchs. But let's see what's actually written about them and see what fits. So we can look at Revelation 4, verse 4, and then 10 through 11. So it says, "And round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment, and they had on their heads crowns of gold. The 24 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne, and worship him that liveth forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. Now, that whole casting of crowns thing, that's a pretty common belief among any Christian who's, premillennial, that's us. We're the ones that cast. The angels don't do that. That's us. Well, here it's saying that the 24 elders are doing that. So let's look at Revelation 5, 8 through 10. And it says, and when he had taken the book, the 4 beasts and 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of the saints. They sung a new song, saying, Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to God by thy blood. Redeemed us to God by thy blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation, and hast made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth. So again, these 24 elders have this song, and they say, you have redeemed us. You have redeemed us to God. So, and I'm going to get into that, but so from these passages, here are a few things. Here are 12 things that we learn about the elders, about these mysterious 24 elders. First, that there are 24 of them. Second, they are sitting around the throne of God. They are clothed with white raiment. They have crowns of gold on their heads. They worship God by casting their crowns before the throne. They give honor to God for all of creation. They are a different group than the 4 beasts. It makes that distinction. These are different. Now, the 4 beasts, that's definitely angels. What we would call angels in our modern vernacular. But that's a whole separate thing. But they're angels. They're not the same as the 24 elders here. Two distinct groups. 8, they sing a new song. 9, they claim Jesus has redeemed them by his blood. They come from every kindred, tongue, people, and nation. That really doesn't sound like angels to me. God has made them kings and priests. And they will rule with Jesus on the earth. So reading through this list, it's easy to see why they might represent the church. The most obvious example is in the new song that they sing. These elders are destined for things that are never promised to angels. In fact, we can derive this from the book of Revelation itself in the letters to the 7 churches from chapters 2 and 3. And while we go through this, I want you to think about this. Chapters 2 and 3, Jesus gives a lot of promises to Christians. Then chapter 4, we see the 24 elders with the same things that are promised. So either there's something real tricky going on here that's like meant to confuse people on purpose, or it's just plain and simple, these are the same people. Like the 24 elders are these Christians after they get their rewards. So let's look at first John's introduction to Revelation with the new song of the 24 elders. Let's compare these. So Revelation 1, 5 through 6 says, And from Jesus Christ, who is the faithful witness, and the first begotten of the dead, and the prince of the kings of the earth, unto him that loved us and washed us from our sins in his own blood, and hath made us kings and priests unto God and his Father, to him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. That sounds like a lot, very, very similar. That sounds a lot like what we just read in Revelation 4. I mean, it's basically a repeat of the same thing. So in John's description of Christians, we see commonalities with the 24 elders. Both are called kings and priests. Both were redeemed by the blood of Jesus. And additionally, the fact that they were redeemed by the blood of Jesus shows that this could not be referring to Old Testament saints, but rather must be describing New Testament and church-age Christians. Also, very quickly, I want to address a common objection against the translation that we're using. So the KJV translates the new song from Revelation 5 as saying, us and we. You redeemed us by your blood, and all that, showing that the 24 elders are singing about themselves. Now, some other versions render it differently, such as the NIV. The NIV says, and they sing a new song saying, You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, because you were slain, and with your blood you purchased for God persons from every tribe and language and people and nation. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests to serve our God, and they will reign on the earth. That comes from the NIV. Now, that makes it sound like the 24 elders are singing about somebody else. Now, a great deal of study can be done on various points of what's called textual criticism, on whether we should be using the received text or the critical text. And then that is a whole study in itself. But there is actually a much simpler solution. And I do believe that textual criticism argument is extremely important. It would take way too long to get into. I'm going to point you to a really good resource, though, if you want to look into that. But there's an easier solution here. Sometimes in a biblical song, when the subjects are singing about themselves, sometimes they actually will use the words they and them. So, for example, we find this right in the Bible. We can read through the song that the children of Israel were singing about themselves in Exodus 15, 13, and 17. Thou in thy mercy hast led forth the people which thou hast redeemed. Thou hast guided them in thy strength unto thy holy habitation. Thou shalt bring them in and plant them in the mountain of thine inheritance, in the place, O Lord, which thou hast made for thee to dwell in the sanctuary, O Lord, which thy hands have established. So, just for sake of argument here, we can bypass the argument from textual criticism, though, again, I'm not saying you should ignore that completely. That is a very strong piece of evidence in this case. It's just really, really lengthy, and it would take us a long time to get into. But I will give you a resource if you want a whole teaching on this that I think is rock solid. But really, we only need to demonstrate that the use of they or them in a song doesn't necessarily mean the ones who are singing are not referring to themselves. So even if somebody wanted to say, well, the KJV got that wrong, the elders are singing, no, you redeemed them by your blood. Even if that's the case, we have a biblical example where, well, they could still easily be singing about themselves. And that's in Exodus. And in Exodus, that's clear that they're singing about themselves. So that wouldn't destroy this argument at all. It wouldn't do really anything. However, if a deep dive into the history of the translation is also desired, like if you really want to know, yeah, but are there other ancient manuscripts that say they and them? There's several sources that have strong evidence that rendering it to us and we is actually correct. And that is the best thing that I can refer you to that I know offhand is from Andy Woods on his YouTube channel, and it was from December 10th of 2018. It was in his study of the book of Revelation. It's episode 22. It's called The Right Response, Revelation 5, 8 through 14. And I do have a YouTube link here, but I don't want to say all these numbers and letters. If you just look that up, Andy Woods, Revelation, episode 22, The Right Response, it'll come up. But he does get into all of those textual criticism arguments and shows how, like, yes, us and we is the best way to translate this. And there's only one kind of ridiculous reason why it would ever be translated to, they and them. And when you actually look at the whole, look at everything that's happening with these ancient texts, you realize, like, oh wow, well, that doesn't hold much water. You got to take one text as opposed to like all of these others, and really when people do that, it's because they would prefer it to be that way, because there's really no reason on its own face to just take that one text. But again, I don't want to get into all that. We'll be here for hours if we do. So through this song, and just to reiterate again, I'm not sidestepping the textual criticism. Even if somebody wanted to say, even if there was proof that it was originally written, John originally wrote they and them, we still have a biblical reason, we have a biblical precedent to say, well, they're still talking about themselves, because sometimes they do that in biblical songs. Here's this one in Exodus. They're clearly singing about themselves, but they're saying they and them. So that's just, it's not an argument that holds any water. That was the one thing where I said in the beginning of the video, there's one little sticking point, but when you actually understand it, it's not really a sticking point at all. That's the one. That's basically it. So if you can get past that, and it's pretty easy to, if you can get past that, then the rest of this will be a breeze. So through this song, we can actually account for. I remember we looked at that 12, that list of 12 attributes of the 24 elders. What we can know about them. Well, we can account for items 9 and 11 from that list, and we'll go through that again too. But so. Throughout the letters to the churches in Revelation chapters 2 and 3, we find promises to Christians that equal many of the other features of the 24 elders. Actually, all of them, and we'll look at that in a second. Now, Jesus, as recorded by John, also describes overcomers. So if we want to learn who the overcomers are, because it's important, because again, we're going to look at that list of 12 attributes of the 24 elders, and I'm going to make the case that every single attribute, all 12 of them, are promised to Christians, are promised when we get our rewards. When do we get our rewards? Well, if the 24 elders are Christians who receive their rewards, it has to be pre-trib. It just has to. You can't have pre-wrath and post-trib, mid-trib. It wouldn't make any sense because they wouldn't have received the rewards yet. So, what are they doing there before the first seal is even broken? Okay, so let's look at this. And so this topic of overcomers comes up. And so this is important. So if we want to learn who the overcomers are, we're actually in luck. John himself, same author as Revelation, identifies the term overcomers as anyone who believes in Jesus. So 1 John 5, 4 through 5 says, For whatsoever is born of God overcometh the world, and this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith. Who is he that overcometh the world, but he that believeth that Jesus is the Son of God? Now, to Thyatira, in Revelation 2, 26 through 27, Jesus says, and he that overcometh, okay, again, we've already established from John that an overcomer is somebody who believes that Jesus is the Son of God. That a Christian is an overcomer. And he that overcometh and keepeth my words unto the end, to him I will give power over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. As the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father. He promises that the overcomers will have power over the same nations that Jesus will rule with a rod of iron. So keep that in mind. To Sardis, he says, Thou hast a few names even in Sardis which have not defiled their garments, and they shall walk with me in white, for they are worthy. He that overcometh, the same shall be clothed in white raiment, and I will not blot out his name from the book of life, but I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels. Revelation 3, 4 through 5. Now, as we can see, Jesus promises the overcomers that they will be clothed in white raiment. Okay, we're gonna make a comparison list here after we go through all this. Next, excuse me, one moment. Okay. Next, Jesus says to Philadelphia and Laodicea. This is Revelation 3:11 and 18. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast which thou hast, that no man take thy crown. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, and thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. So Jesus tells Philadelphia not to allow anyone to take their crown, meaning they must already have crowns waiting for them in heaven. He also tells Laodicea to obtain gold from him, and, once again, white raiment. Now, for Laodicea to do this, there must be a way for them to be given gold and white raiment from Jesus. So next, to Laodicea, Jesus says in Revelation 3:21, To him that overcometh, will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame, and am set down with my Father in his throne. Jesus tells them they will sit on a throne with Jesus if they overcome. So together, these letters explain about half of our list of attributes describing the 24 elders so far. We have overcomers, and the 24 elders sit around the throne of God. They wear white raiment. They have golden crowns. We're redeemed by the blood of Jesus and are made kings and priests and will rule with Jesus. Now remember, we're introduced to the 24 elders in chapter 4. 2 and 3 go through all of these, the same exact rewards that Christians get. So again, either something is really tricky, because if 24 elders were not the church, it seems like John would have explained that. It's like, okay, I know I've been talking about Christians this whole time in chapters 2 and 3 of Revelation. I've been talking about all these rewards that Christians get. And now there's these 24 elder beings that have all the same descriptions. That's going to be confusing, so let me explain that. But he doesn't explain it, because it's self-explanatory, because it is the church. But let's continue, because again, I said we've only gotten through about half of the list of attributes of the 24 elders. What about the rest? Well, Christians give honor to God for all of creation, just like the 24 elders do, and we get that from Romans 11:36. We are told to sing songs with thankfulness to God. That's Colossians 3:16. In several places, we're promised crowns. James 1 through 12, 2 Timothy 4:8, James 1 verse 12. Chapter 1, verse 12, 2 Timothy 4:8, 1 Peter 5:4, other places as well. We now have access to God's throne in a way that was not accessible in the times of the Old Testament. That's Hebrews 4:16. We are different than the angels, 1 Corinthians 15:39 through 40. And Christians are from every nation because the gospel is for Jews and Gentiles. So Romans 1:16. So if we go back to our list, we can plug in these references and see that the 24 elders and Christians after the rapture are likely the same group. So there's 24 of them. We'll go through the list again. There's 24 of them. Now, you'll note that that's the one thing that I don't have a Bible verse for, because we're going to have to get into that in the next section coming up. But there's 24 of them. They are sitting around the throne of God. Okay, so again, this list is descriptions of the 24 elders that we find in Revelation 4 and 5. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to see in all of those promises throughout the Bible, and especially in Revelation, of all those promises made to Christians of what happens at the time that our reward, when we get our rewards, do they line up? Because if they do, then these 24 elders are Christians. They are raptured Christians. They have to be. There's nothing else they could be. So what do we know from Revelation 4 and 5 about the 24 elders? Well, they are sitting around the throne of God. Christians are promised that in Revelation 3:21. They're in other places, of course, but this is just a short list. I'm not going to go through every single verse where that kind of thing is promised. The book of Ephesians promises that as well. But they are clothed with white raiment. Well, Revelation 3:4 through 5. The 24 elders have crowns of gold on their heads. Revelation 3:11 and 18. Promised to Christians. The 24 elders worship God by casting their crowns before the throne. Well, we get that from Hebrews 4:16. They give honor to God for all of creation. We get that described for Christians. We're supposed to do that. Romans 11:36. They are a different group than the four beasts. And we get a great description. 1 Corinthians 15:39 through 40. We get a great description of that. Two different kinds of flesh. They're a different group. Now, of course, we get changed and we get glorified, but still, they're different. The 24 elders are different than the four beasts, than angels. Even in our glorified bodies, we're still different. We don't become angels. We're still different than the angels. They sing a new song. We have that as well. Christians have that in Colossians 3:16. They claim that Jesus has redeemed them by his blood. Revelation 1:5. Of course, only us Christians can claim that. They come from every kindred, tongue, people, and nation. Well, we get that from Romans 1:16. For Christians, who else could it be? That's not angels. God has made them kings and priests. We get that again from Revelation 1:6. And again, all throughout the Bible. They will rule with Jesus on the earth. And that's Revelation 2:26 through 27. So, as we can see, 11 out of 12 points on this list match up perfectly with these 24 elders being glorified Christians who have already received their rewards by this point. Now that leaves one more mystery. Why are there 24 instead of any other number? Well, a picture from the temple in the Old Testament shows how God might decide to operate the heavenly temple once Christians are raptured. Now keep in mind, the It says in the Bible that the temple is basically a shadow of the heavenly temple. There is a heavenly temple that didn't end with the destruction of the earthly temple in at the end of the age of Torah. Now we don't know for sure if the heavenly temple discontinued temple practices during that time. We don't know, but we do see temple things happening, temple rituals happening in heaven in the book of Revelation. One example is Revelation 8 with the censer and the incense and everything. That's the Day of Atonement. Now, of course, angels aren't doing sacrifices and stuff. There's a difference there. But the idea is that the dates were so important on when human beings were supposed to conduct these rituals, because at that same time, the angels were doing it in the heavenly temple. Not exactly the same, because there's not going to be sacrifices, because angels are different than men. Angels don't need to sacrifice for any. They just have a different thing, but it's supposed to be happening at the same time, because the earth temple is just a shadow of the heavenly temple. So when we see that happen again, we do get this picture from the temple in the Old Testament that shows how God might decide to operate the heavenly temple once Christians are raptured. And again, by this time, this is during the tribulation, so more of the focus is back on Israel again, because you got temple sacrifices and things. And again, that's not for salvation. It says in Hebrews that the blood of bull and goats, like they've never provided salvation ever. That was something the Pharisees likely started to believe and teach, but early Jews in the Old Testament never believed that. But this could explain why there are 24 elders. So in 1 Chronicles 24 and 25, we read that David established 24 priestly courses for the rituals of the temple. Each priest had a corresponding musician who would perform his duties on the same chorus. And this is interesting because the elders are singing in here. And I want to cut real quick, because you might be thinking, well, why in the heavenly temple are they going back to Old Testament stuff? That doesn't make any sense. Well, we got to look at also the end of Ezekiel. The end of the book of Ezekiel that describes the millennium and how things will work. It's very similar to the Old Testament, but it's not exactly. We see at the end of Ezekiel, there is a temple, there is a city, there are sacrifices, there's priests. It's not exactly the same. It's very close, but it's not exactly the same. And I cannot stress this enough. The sacrifices are not for salvation. You don't get your salvation in the millennium through sacrifices. So it's not a salvific thing. So I think what's going on in the heavenly temple, I think that is what's going to happen on the earthly temple during the millennium. So they're already doing that. I don't know about now in the church age. I don't know, but at least during the tribulation, they're already doing that up in heaven. And again, the Old Testament temple was a shadow. The tabernacle was a shadow of what was already going on in the temple in heaven. There was already a temple in heaven. There was already practices, certain angelic rituals. And we don't get a lot of information on those, but we know that they are occurring. And so the earthly temple is just a shadow of what was already going on. And when we see that happen again in the last, 8 chapters of Ezekiel, I believe that's a lot closer to what's actually happening in the heavenly temple, again, without the sacrifices. There will be sacrifices during the millennium on earth in the earthly temple. There's not sacrifices in heaven, because how would that work? And who would be sacrificed? The angels aren't going to sacrifice. It's not going to do anything. They don't have sin in the same way that we do. Once an angel rebels, that's it. And that's a whole other study. But so I think that's what's going on here. So the fact that we see the 24, we see a type of 24 priestly courses, it could be that, God's heavenly temple existed before the earthly one did, and the position of these 24, or this idea of 24 positions was always part of the plan. And then he just shared that as a shadow for the earthly temple. So don't let that throw you. Okay, so we read that David established 24 priestly courses for the rituals of the temple. Each priest had a corresponding musician who would perform his duties on the same course. And again, it's interesting because the elders were singing. Now, what makes this relevant to the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Qumran community is that the lineage of the sons of Zadok traces back to the 24 courses of priests. You might be wondering who's Zadok. Well, the priestly line was supposed to come through Zadok. There is a whole history here that I do get into in my 2-volume set. That I don't have time to get into it here. But this was how it was supposed to be. And then somewhere in the intertestamental period, things got screwed up and people rebelled and they stopped following the ways that it was supposed to be. The Zadokian priests weren't allowed to be priests, basically. So they had to go to Qumran and do their own thing. It's a whole history. And I do have videos on that, and I've got some extra information on that that's going to be available in these new books that I'm putting out very soon. But again, I'll just repeat, what makes this relevant to the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Qumran community is that the lineage of the sons of Zadok traces back to these 24 courses of priests. So 1 Chronicles 24:3 says, with the help of Zadok and the sons of Eleazar and Ahimelech of the sons of Ithamar, David organized them according to the appointed duties of their service. Now, 1 Chronicles 24:7-19 explains which priest and corresponding musician was assigned to each course. So there were courses. And it doesn't mean that after their course was done, they stopped being a priest. It just means they have a course, they have responsibilities and duties, and then it's the next guy's turn. It's, you can sort of think about it as like employment shifts or something. And I do have a list of the 24. If you want to know all these names and hear me butcher them, I could go through that. I probably won't. I have it listed in the book, but there's 24 of them, and you can find them in Chronicles 24:7-19. Now the book of 1 Chronicles also explains their purpose, and this is 1 Chronicles 24:19. These had as their appointed duty in their service to come into the house of the Lord according to the procedure established for them by Aaron their father, as the Lord God of Israel had commanded them. Now, amazingly, there were not only 24 priests involved, but the number 24, as it turns out, was representative of a much larger group. Same thing we see in Revelation. Before I get to this, and I'll repeat that after, we're about 2/3 of the way through. I do want to mention that, just real quick before we get into this part of it, if you enjoy this kind of content, if this kind of thing, if you feel like you're getting something out of this, I would ask that you go visit dailyrenegade.com and become a member today. Not only do you get early access to full videos, but again, like I mentioned at the top of the video, there's a lot of things I just can't put out on YouTube for fear that they'll delete videos or delete the entire channel, and I can't put the channel at risk. There are certain things, and those of you who have followed me for a while know, there are certain things that I've made documentaries about that I cannot mention on YouTube, or my entire channel will get removed. A ministry that I previously worked for had this happen recently because of exactly this. So, and I've had this happen multiple times too. So this is why I created Daily Renegade. It's a place where we don't have to worry about censorship. You can go, you can watch all the videos, you can watch the full videos of everything. And there's even a community tab that works pretty much exactly like Facebook without the censorship. So members of Daily Renegade, we can all communicate with each other. You can post, you can put pictures up, you can make your own account. It's really exactly like Facebook. There's just no censorship. Now, again, I do run the site. If I see somebody cussing somebody out, I'm going to remove them. But so far, I have not had one problem with trolls because, let's face it, trolls are pathetic, right? They're not going to spend their own money to go and troll somebody. They'll just do it for free on YouTube. So we'll leave the filth with YouTube. At dailyrenegade.com, we're actually creating something really nice. So the video section works exactly like YouTube. It looks really, really similar. It has the same layout. You get your own profile. You can favorite videos. You can share things. You can comment. I mean, it has the same layout as YouTube. It just does not have the censorship. And it's the same with the community tab. So at dailyrenegade.com, yes, there is a membership fee because there has to be. I'm not rich. I didn't get into full-time ministry to become rich, so I can't afford to do it all on my own. So there is a membership, but that goes towards keeping Daily Renegade afloat. But also it helps with what we're trying to do. We want to make a phone app and a TV app so that Daily Renegade will be even easier to access. Right now, you can go on your phone and just go dailyrenegade.com, and it works great. It works beautifully now. We had problems with an earlier website that we went through a different service. We went through Wix, and we got rid of that. That's done. So if you're happening to view this and you're thinking, oh, I remember that site from 2 years ago and it was awful, I couldn't do anything. Please, I'm asking you, give us another chance, because we have fixed all that. We fixed all the junk. It was expensive to do, but it's because of people supporting Daily Renegade, getting memberships and even donating, that we're able to do that. So it works great now, and now we want to take it to the next step. We want to make a phone app, and we want to make a TV app. So dailyrenegade.com is where you can get that. It's only $10 a month or $100 a year. And if you can do it, I suggest doing the $100 a year because it's cheaper in the long run. Essentially, you get 2 months for free. So it's something that I think is really great to support. And sorry, excuse me. It's something that I think can... really great ministry to support. Now we do have to run it like it's not technically a ministry. It's technically, according to the government, it's an LLC. We have to run it that way to ensure that we can say whatever we want, because the second you get into 501c3 territory, the government basically shuts you up. You can't say anything that you want. You're at risk of getting everything shut down and possibly fined, possibly jailed, depending what the situation is. So with an LLC, we have more freedom, but it does mean that we have more cost. But I think it's worth it. I do treat it like a ministry. I treat it like a ministry effort, and it's a great place for us all to connect and fellowship with each other. I'll also mention again, the information from this comes from a 2-volume set. I'm days away from putting out, maybe out by the time that you see this. I'm not sure. But it's called Forgotten Prophecies of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the best place to get it once it's out will be prophecywatchers.com. I also want to say, too, that we're still collecting donations. So many of you know the situation. I'll run through it very briefly. 2 main things. One, 2 weeks before I got the job offer here for Prophecy Watchers, my wife and I had bought a house in Illinois. And once we got the job offer here, we knew it was a calling from God. We knew it, and so we had to take it. And it's great. I mean, I love working at Prophecy Watchers. I love everybody there. Feels like home. Feels like a family, and it is a perfect fit for us. But the problem is we are renting a house here in Oklahoma, but we still have a house that we're trying to sell in Illinois. By the way, if you're in the Decatur, Illinois area and you're looking for a really nice 4-bedroom house, let me know. JoshPeckDisclosure@gmail.com. It's for sale now. But in the meantime, we don't know how long that house is going to sell. And anybody who knows anything about the economy knows this is a really bad time to try to sell a house. So it's been very difficult financially. It's been financially straining. And especially since, Illinois got hit with some storms, and we had to pay to fix some damages there and stuff. We've had to put a lot of money into it. So while we're paying for a mortgage there, we're paying for rent at this house. So basically we got 2 huge payments, and I don't know how long that's going to last. The second our house sells, I will tell everybody on here, okay, we're good. You don't have to donate. Well, you don't have to donate at all, but we no longer need donations for our living situation. So we are accepting donations for that. We're also accepting because we have a big family. We have 5 kids, and we're a single income house. Christina stays at home, takes care of the kids, homesschools them, works really, really hard. And then I do my ministry work at Prophecy Watchers, and then on my off time on that, I work on Daily Renegade stuff. And anything that I make from Prophecy Watchers and Daily Renegade, that's it for our entire family. So once our house sells, it's going to be fine, but we just don't know how long that's going to last. And if that lasts months and stuff, we need some kind of savings. And whatever savings we had before we put into the first house, because we thought, well, there's a whole story behind that, why it just, we had to buy the house otherwise we weren't going to have a place to live for much longer. And there's a whole thing. Nobody was unfair to us or anything like that. Like, just the basic story was, I went to go work for Zach Drew for a while, for about 9 months, and at the time, I wasn't in the best. Just at the time, we were already dealing with financial problems because of our son's health care, which I'm going to get into in a minute. But so Zach said, well, I actually have a house that I'm trying to sell. You can stay in it rent free up until like this time, but by this time, we need to find out if you're going to buy it or if you're going to live somewhere else, or we'll need to figure out what to do, because I won't be able to afford to just do that forever. And so that's what it was. So Zach helped us out a lot, but it got to that point, and again, this was 2 weeks before the Prophecy Watchers job offer. So I said, okay, we'll just buy the house from you. We'll make it really easy. You've been really generous. You've been helping us out. We don't have any other place around here where we can rent that can support all of us, so we'll just buy it from you. So we went through that whole process and bought the house, and then it was like 2 weeks after that I got the Prophecy Watchers job offer. And but again, like, I didn't move to Prophecy Watchers till months after that. So either way, even if I had gotten the job offer before buying the house, I still would have had to buy the house unless I absolutely wanted to financially ruin my very good friend Zach Drew, and there was just no way I was going to do that to him. So either way, I was going to have to. I was going to buy the house. Zach never told me I had to, but in my mind, I had to, because if I didn't, I would have totally messed up a really good friend, and I wouldn't have had there was no other place for me and the family to go, so it just wouldn't have worked. Anyway, so that's just kind of a brief rundown of why we're in the situation we're in. Prophecy Watchers has helped out a lot, but again, we don't know how long this is going to last. So until the house sells, I have to keep bringing it up and say, hey, if you feel led and if you want to donate, that would be extremely helpful. Best place is paypal.me/JoshPeckDisclosure. If you don't want to do that, I do have a Cash App. It's $JoshScottPeck. If you want to mail in something, a couple of people have mailed in checks just addressed to me, to the Prophecy Watchers building. I don't have the exact address. I think it's, I don't know what their P.O. box is, but I think it's on their website. So if you just want to go to prophecywatchers.com and look where to actually send in, and look for a P.O. box where to send in, or an address. I know the physical address of the building, but I honestly don't know if that's been made public, and I don't want to make it public if it hasn't, so I'm not going to do that. Also, we're still accepting donations for my son's healthcare. Very brief synopsis. He had cancer for years. We took him to St. Jude's, got it cured. But the chemo destroyed his immune system, and he's got a lot of long-lasting health issues because of that. So to reverse those health issues, Christina actually got her degree because of this whole thing in natural health and medicine, and so we're going the all-natural route. But that stuff is really expensive. Those treatments, those supplements, and I'm not talking about just supplements off of the shelf of Walmart. A lot of that's garbage, and it's not even real. But to actually get the real stuff that your body needs to heal, it's so expensive, and insurance does not cover it at all. So, and there's also medical treatments and things like that he needs. Very, very expensive, and we're having to pay out of pocket for that. So again, for my family, I don't like having to ask all the time. And I'm not ever going to impose on you that you have to donate. You don't. You really don't. I would love it if you'd at least pray, though. That anybody can do that. If you're watching this video, you can pray. At least pray that, and God has been providing. He's been doing great. But, just pray that continues. Pray for our wisdom Pray for Nathan's health. Pray for our house to sell. There's a lot of things you can pray for that would help. I don't love having to bring this up every single time, but for my family, absolutely, I'm going to do that. It's especially if you're a man, it's not easy to ask for help. It's not easy to just put your personal details out there and admit when you need help. It's not easy, but I'll do anything for my family, and I'm sure you would too. So yeah, every single time I do this, every single time I get comments, I get emails, I get people that get annoyed that I'm even bringing it up. And I'll get comments that say, well, the gospel should be free. The gospel is free. I'm not selling the gospel. I'm not telling you that you have to give anything. You don't. But if you feel led, not just for me, for my family, for my kids, if you feel led, it would be incredibly helpful. And I'm not going to promise that you're going to get anything from it. That's up to God. I'm never going to be the kind of guy that says, sow a seed and if you do this, God will reward you. I don't know what God's going to do. And that shouldn't be why you give anyway. You should never give to get a reward for yourself. If you're giving because you're expecting God to reward you in some way, I'd rather you just not give at all, because that's like spiritually dangerous territory for you to be in. And I would suggest getting some actual good, solid foundational teaching of the teachings of Jesus and what he means when he says when he tells us to give with a cheerful heart and all that stuff. You don't expect things in return. We know that we're getting rewards in heaven. We know all that, but you shouldn't expect anything in return. All it is it's a gift that would really help us out a lot. And if anything, I mean, it helps. It makes it a little easier for me to make these videos. If I don't constantly have this stuff on my mind or have to plan out what we're going to do financially for the next bill, because all that stuff takes time. So I mean, if anything, you'll get more videos, but I'm not gonna say that any promises come from any of that. It's just a nice thing that would help us, and we'd appreciate it. But again, do it if the Lord leads you. If not, no worries. Just pray. If you can pray, that'd be great. So again, paypal.me/JoshPeckDisclosure or CashApp $JoshScottPeck. And we have not set a P.O. box up yet, but we will very soon. I actually just keep forgetting about it because we have so much stuff to do. We have so many things day to day that we have to focus on. We are still in that transition period, but we're getting through it. And actually, it's really been great. I do have some other links and things in the description below. I did recently take part in a webinar that's available or will be available at the end of May, I believe, at paulbegleyprophecy.com, and I talked about upcoming magnetic pole shifts, what that might have to do with prophecy, talked a little bit about geographic pole shifts, how all of this relates to Bible prophecy, a lot of revelation in there. So I'd suggest checking out that webinar, paulbegleyprophecy.com. There's also an Orlando Prophecy Summit that's on demand right now. And if you use the promo code PECKOrlando24, all caps, all one word. And then you'll have full access to all videos and speakers. This is a Prophecy Watchers Conference. And for more information on that, you can go to OrlandoProphecySummit.com or ProphecyWatchers.com. Also, if you haven't had a chance, check out Cornerstone Asset Metals. The economy is not great, and the value of our dollar is dropping by the day. So what we should do is invest in something that's more stable, like silver and gold. But the problem is there's a lot of scammers out there. There's a lot of people you can't trust, even people calling themselves Christians that you can't trust because they mark up their prices. Cornerstone doesn't do that. And if you look at any interview that I have on my YouTube channel and at dailyrenegade.com with Terry Saka, look at any of his interviews. He's a prophecy guy. He's a Nephilim guy like us. He knows all this stuff, and he treats his business as a ministry. He's doing this as a service for brothers and sisters in Christ, especially when their retirement, their 401k, your investments, even just your savings are in danger. So go to cornerstoneassetmetals.com, tell them that we sent you, and you can get a free report. You can ask questions. They're not salesmen. They're not going to be pushy with you. You can talk to them about Nephilim if you want to. They're knowledgeable. They know what they're talking about, and they're not going to scam you. I've been working with them for years. I don't promote very many companies on this channel because of specifically that. I've got to actually really know and believe that and know firsthand that it's a solid company, because I don't want to put all of you at risk. And I fully believe that about Cornerstone. We've talked a little bit about prophecy. We do have a Dead Sea Scroll prophecy calendar, a print calendar that you can put on your wall that tells the regular Gregorian date that we go through, and then has the Dead Sea Scroll prophetic calendar that I talk a lot about in my upcoming books, but also talked about in Lost Prophecies of Qumran. So if you want a print version of that, the link is in the description below. Okay, so I think that's it. All the donation stuff, everything. And again, I apologize that takes a long time to get through sometimes, but again, I'm doing it, especially the donation stuff, I'm doing it for my family. See how fast I whipped through the rest of it? Because that's more, hey, if you want a calendar, buy a calendar, great. You know, it does help support me, my family, my ministry, helps support Ken Johnson's ministry as well. You know, if you want to trade your 401k or your retirement into silver, I think it's a very, very, very smart thing to do. I think you should do that. But, you know, again, it's just what won't you do for your family? If I have to deal with some mean comments of people saying that, oh, he's just money grubbing, and no, I'm not. You don't have to give me anything. You don't got to buy anything. I'm still going to be putting free information out on YouTube. But if I have to deal with that, and then the good-hearted people of you who feel God calling you to give, and you do give, and that helps my family, of course I'll go through that. It's very, very minor persecution, you know, compared to stuff that other Christians are going through today. It's very, very minimal. All I have to do is just not read the comments, which typically I don't on YouTube. But that's the reason. It's just I'll do anything for my family, and this is one way that'll help. So okay, let's get back into it. So, now remember where we left off. There were not only 24 priests involved in this whole thing. We established that there were 24 priests involved in the running of the temple. In the day-to-day running of the temple, they all had their own courses. By the way, it might be like that in the millennium too. Yes, all 24 elders are seated together in this one scene in Revelation, but that doesn't mean that they don't have courses. They each could have their own courses. We don't know. So that's something that we'll have to wait and see. But you might think, well, why is it? If that's Christians, why is it 24? Why did 24? Well, we know the number now because there were 24 priestly courses, but why have a small number represent a much larger number? Why doesn't John see all Christians seated? Well, there actually were not only 24 priests involved, but that number 24 in the Old Testament, in the old temple, you know, the shadow of the heavenly temple. As it turns out, that number 24 was representative of a much larger group. So 1 Chronicles 23, 3-5 says, "Now the Levites were numbered from the age of 30 years and upward, and their number by their polls, man by man, was 38,000, of which 24,000 were to set forward the work of the house of the Lord, and 6,000 were officers and judges. Moreover, 4,000 were porters, and 4,000 praised the Lord with the instruments which I made, said David, to praise therewith." Again, 1 Chronicles 23, 3-5. That's a lot of people, but imagine that's just for one nation, Israel. Imagine how much more you need in a heavenly temple that's over the whole world, you know, and that's going to be us. That's going to be some of the jobs that we'll get to do. So just to go over it again, we discovered that there is a total number of 38,000. So this shows how there could be literally 24 elders around the throne of God, but they could also represent a much larger number, that of every believer from the church age. We got to remember too, not every believer is going to necessarily even have a job or even have rewards in heaven, because remember, Paul says that if somebody's works are all burnt up, they're still saved, but they're just like barely saved by fire, you know, like, but they have no rewards. There's where Jesus has teachings like, you know, to one I give one city, to another I give 5 cities. Presumably to a lot, there's no cities. You know, it depends on what we do in this life and how we live our lives now and what we're doing in service to Jesus. Those are the things that don't get burned up. But anyway, so back in the Old Testament, all the Levites here were age 30 and up. And that's significant because Jesus started his ministry at age 30 and was crucified at age 33 and a half. So it has been a belief among Christians that when we receive our glorified bodies, we'll probably appear to be the same age as Jesus. So if the 24 elders from Revelation connect with the 24 courses of priests, then we might have a clue that we will appear at least 30 years old, maybe. Just a thought I wanted to throw in there. But additionally, we discover that there are several different types of jobs. Not all are priests. Some are officers, judges, porters, praisers, etc. And this connects with how we as Christians will be given different tasks in the millennial kingdom depending on our lives. So Luke 12:48, for unto whomsoever much is given of him shall much be required, and to whom men have committed much of him they will ask the more. Luke 19:17 through 19, and he said unto them, well, thou good servant, because thou hast been faithful in a very little, have thou authority over 10 cities. And the second came, saying, Lord, thy pound hath gained 5 pounds. And he said likewise to him, be thou also over 5 cities. 1 Corinthians 3:12 through 15. Now if any man build upon this foundation gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If any man's work abide which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. So all church age believers will have like different jobs, just like the 38,000 from First Chronicles. And I believe that, we'll see this reflected in the 24 elders. This is why they are praising, worshiping, sitting with Jesus, and singing songs. They represent how we'll all be given different tasks, just as David arranged everything for the temple, only this will be for the heavenly temple. Now, another point of interest from the list of priestly courses presents itself when we look at the number 8 in our list, or number 8 in the course, which again, I didn't read that whole list, but that number 8 in there is the name Abiah. This was the course that Zacharias, sometimes spelled Zechariah, the father of John the Baptist, was involved in. Luke 1:5a says, there was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias in the division of Abiah. So note that we see in that list, if you can go back and look that up in the Bible, First Chronicles. I forget the exact verse. It's in my notes. Hey, if you get my notes at dailyrenegade.com, you can find that. But whatever I said before, look that up, and you'll see that Yeshua follows Abiah. Now it's translated Jeshua, but there's no letter J in Hebrew, so it would actually be Yeshua, which just so happens to be the Hebrew name of Jesus. So now that was a name that people had. I'm not saying that in the Old Testament was Jesus. That was just a priest that happened to have that name. But what it shows is that just as Abiah preceded Yeshua in the priestly courses, John the Baptist preceded Jesus in real life ministry. I thought that was really cool. So it might seem like a small detail, but it shows how God can include prophetic insights in unlikely locations throughout Scripture, just like, a list of 24 courses of priestly order. Now, lastly, we might have descriptions of the 24 elders, or more specifically, glorified human beings from the church age in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And if you're not familiar with why we would even look to the Dead Sea Scrolls, this part of the video might seem like, wow, he just went into left field. Why is he going there? And again, remember, this comes from a 2-volume set where it's all about Dead Sea Scrolls and prophecy and stuff. It does fit within the book, but if I were to get into this and give you all the history, we'd be here for another 3 or 4 hours. So if you want all the background, get the book, or you can even look up some of my earlier videos. But there's more information in the book. There's updated information even. So as I show in my upcoming book, the rule of the congregation scroll of the Dead Sea Scrolls, it mentions a class of people called famous men. And I think this is likely describing church age believers after the rapture. Now, we have to remember when it says famous men, that's a translation choice that doesn't, we think famous men, we think like celebrities or something. That's probably not at all even close to what the original text is trying to say. But for some reason, the translator, and this translation that I was going from is actually kind of old. So it might have meant something different back then. It's a translation. But let's look at this. So this comes from Rule of the Congregation, and if you want all the verse, it's 2, 5b, 8 through 9, 11 through 12a, 15b through 22. And keep in mind, too, that the Dead Sea Scrolls are really fractured, so they're degraded in certain areas, so we don't have like a lot of whole complete sentences. We have some, but there's some places where things are missing. So this is what it says. And this is talking about the millennium. And everyone who is defiled in his flesh, these shall not enter to take their place among the congregation of famous men, for the angels of holiness are among their congregation. This is the assembly of famous men, those summoned to the gathering of the community council, when God begets the Messiah with them, and all the chiefs of the clans of the congregation, with the wise men and the learned, shall sit before them, each one according to his dignity. And when they gather at the table of community, or to drink the new wine, and the table of community is prepared, and the new wine is mixed for drinking, no one should stretch out his hands to the first fruit of the bread and of the new wine before the priest, for he is the one who blesses the first fruit of bread and of the new wine, and stretches out his hand toward the bread before them. Afterwards, the Messiah of Israel shall stretch out his hand toward the bread, and afterwards shall bless all the congregation of the community, each one according to his dignity. And in accordance with this regulation, they shall act at each meal when at least 10 men are gathered. Now, I actually believe that this is a millennial reign version of communion. Because when you go through the Dead Sea Scrolls, you go through all of the history. Each age has a version of communion. There was a version of this in the Age of Torah, and we read about that in the Bible. So here there is a new version of communion that's a little bit different, but it's still communion. So here, I believe that the famous men mentioned are actually glorified church age believers, because we actually see every other group of those obedient to God mentioned. So, we see angels there. We see, clans. So those would be those who are still human, not glorified yet, but obedient. And then the only one that we can't understand is this famous men. Well, that's probably the glorified church age believers, and famous men probably isn't the best translation in the world, not how we would think of it today. It may have worked totally appropriately when it was first translated, but right now, famous means something totally different. And I don't know how to read Hebrew, so I can't look at that scroll and know what exactly the Hebrew word is. I actually do have a database of all the scrolls in that have been discovered in their original languages. I just can't read them. So I don't know what that Hebrew word would be. But I believe that the famous men are glorified church age believers, because again, we see every other group of those obedient to God mentioned. So by process of elimination, the famous men likely refers to the raptured church and glorified bodies. We also have a clue from the War Scroll, another Dead Sea Scroll that talks about famous men. It says, and on the trumpets of famous men they shall write, chiefs of the fathers of the congregations, when they meet in the meeting house, they shall write God's directives for the holy councils. And on the trumpets of the slain they shall write God's mighty hand in the battle to fell all the slain of unfaithfulness. And that's the War Scroll 3b through 4a, and 8b. So here, the famous men have something to do with the meeting house and holy councils, which could be describing the status of believers in the heavenly temple after the rapture. And if you want to look more into like the heavenly council and stuff like that, check out The Unseen Realm by Dr. Michael Heiser if you haven't already. There's some really interesting stuff there. But now with this, interestingly, on the trumpets of all the slain is written that they were slain of unfaithfulness. And this is probably this battle. You might be thinking, what is this battle? I talk about it earlier in the book, but I go through that. We kind of really don't know. There's elements of it that seem like it's Armageddon. There's places where it's like, okay, this has got to be Armageddon. And this is probably one of those places, but we don't know with the whole scroll. So on all the trumpets of all the slain is written that they were slain of unfaithfulness, implying that only unfaithful people will be slain. If the famous men are never slain, it stands to reason that they're immortal. So the famous men of the war scroll and the rule of the congregation might be who the 24 elders from Revelation represents, raptured Christians. Now, if Revelation chapter 4, when John is caught up to heaven, represents the rapture, as some Christians believe, this could explain everything he sees afterwards and everything we've talked about throughout this whole video. The 24 elders most likely represent Christians after the rapture. We went through all 12 of the descriptions of the 24 elders, and we have shown in this video how all 12 of those relates to the promises made to Christians of the things that we get as our rewards once the rapture occurs, once we're glorified. So if I have been able to successfully prove that, because I mean, what's the alternative? Why are the 24 elders described so similarly, basically exact, point by point, to the rewards that Christians get upon glorification if they're not glorified Christians? And if they're not glorified Christians, why isn't there anything that clears that up for us? There's nothing. Either something really tricky is going on here, and I don't believe that, or it's just clear, straightforward, clear cut. All right, those are Christians. They've already got their rewards before Jesus breaks the first seal, before he even gets the scroll. So it's got to be a pre-trib rapture. I mean, that again, that's only one proof, but I think that's a really important one, because if the 24 elders are glorified Christians, it can't be anything else. It really can't. And I've never heard a good refutation of this whole idea. I've heard small attempts at refutations of little pieces of it. Like I mentioned, the they, them versus us, we kind of thing. But when you really drill it down into it, that so far is like, it's not convincing, but it's like the most convincing of everything that I've heard. And it's really, 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 really easy to contend with. And to accept that it must be, I don't want to rehash everything that I already said about it, but it's like you in my mind, it doesn't plainly say that these are not glorified Christians. To me, it plainly says, very obviously, these are glorified Christians. First 3 chapters of Revelation, you get a whole bunch of promises made to the church. If you hold on, this is what you're going to get. Think about the crowns, think about the white garments, this is what you'll get. And then in chapter 4 and 5, they got that. They got exactly the same things. And we know there's a big difference between angels and humans. Angels don't get this kind of stuff. They have a different deal altogether. They don't get salvation in the way that we do. So to me, it's pretty obvious. It's extremely obvious that these are glorified Christians. And if that is the case, these guys are already sitting on the throne before Jesus even takes the scroll. So it would have to be a pre-trib rapture, if that's correct. And I think the only reason to not accept that it's correct is because you have your own beliefs and you want to believe something else. But I would say, try to get past that and try to refute this. Because I think anybody could probably reasonably admit, if the 24 elders are glorified Christians, then yeah, pre-trib is right. I mean, who could deny that? What would even be the argument? Like, no, yeah, those are glorified Christians, but it's not pre-trib. Well, how? That makes absolutely no sense. So you would have to be able to admit that, and I would just say, for those not of the pre-trib rapture view right now, I'm not challenging you that you have to accept this right now. I would just say, I hope that this puts a spark, in your mind or in your heart that says, maybe I should just at least look into this a little more. let me look at some of the other things, and what do the other camps say about this one thing? You know, because again, this is a slam dunk for the pre-trib rapture. If it's true, what's the other argument? What's the refutation? I've never heard one. I've heard some, but I haven't heard any that are convincing, because they'd have to explain, well, because usually it's that they're angels or there's some other kind of being that we don't know about. Why are they called elders when that's been pretty well defined throughout the Bible? Why do they have the same rewards as us? And whether us, we, they, them, doesn't matter. Why are they talking about, the redemption by blood when it's most likely they're talking about themselves? Like overwhelmingly most likely. Why do all of the promises that we get show up with these guys if they're not us? It doesn't make sense. To me, this is the simplest, easiest explanation. And if this is true, this is why John didn't qualify anything. This is why John wasn't like, now I know this is going to be confusing, because we just got done with 3 chapters saying all these rewards, and now we got these beings. If they're Christians, he doesn't have to qualify any of that. He doesn't have to explain anything, because it just flows beautifully. So, let's see. So that's why I believe that the 24 elders most likely, almost assuredly, represent Christians after the rapture, and this would have also this would also be after they have received their gifts and jobs while in heaven. This might indicate why the bride of Christ is already clothed in Revelation 19, but we're not given a description of the rewards of the believers or wedding ceremony throughout the rest of Revelation. And in fact, we see Jesus breaking the seals, but we don't see him in the process of rewarding Christians or marrying his bride. We don't see that anywhere from the point where where we're introduced to the 24 elders onward. We don't see that at all. Well, will these have already occurred by this point? That would be the obvious answer. It already happened. That's why it's not happening during the tribulation. We already got raptured. We already got our rewards. All of that already happened. And now the 24 elders are seated with their rewards, and they already have their jobs, and we already have ours too. So, long study today, an hour and a half. I hope that has helped. Not really much else to say beyond that. I do have more on this topic. Again, this is only one thing, but I think, again, if this is true, it has to be pre-trib, and all the rest will fall into place. Because even if you said, okay, well, yeah, that's true, but then here's this other contradiction that I can't get past. Okay, but if you admit that this is true, then that other contradiction, there's an answer that you're just not aware of yet. That's all it would mean. If this is true, it has to be pre-trib. I don't see any way out of it. Without having to totally go insane with redefining everything and reinterpreting literally everything that would not be consistent with the rest of the Bible. This way it's really plain and simple. So I don't see it. I haven't heard it. It doesn't mean it's not out there. If somebody has a really good refutation of this and wants to share it with me, feel free to put it in the comments. You can, and I'm not going to promise that I'm going to respond, but you can email me at joshpeckdisclosure@gmail.com. I would say be kind, because the second I see any kind of nastiness, I'm not even going to read the email at that point. Also, I like short emails. If I get a novel to read, I just don't have time. It's just a problem of practicality. I just don't have time. So, yeah, I guess that's it for today. An hour and a half. You get the whole thing for free today. We'll see what future episodes have. As of right now, I don't have anything scheduled, but I have ideas in mind of what I want to do for some future interviews and future episodes. That book that 2-volume set is coming out very soon, so keep an eye out for that. I will be doing videos on that. I have a new show coming out on Prophecy Watcher's YouTube channel that's going to be called Into the Supernatural with Josh Peck. And I think I was going to start doing that soon, but I think I want to wait a little bit and make the very first episode something on the Dead Sea Scrolls to coincide with the release of that book. And I was actually thinking where we are prophetically in the prophecy in Enoch that's called the Apocalypse of Weeks in the book of Enoch, because that is the Dead Sea Scrolls. That comes from the Dead Sea Scrolls. And we're actually very, very far along in that amazing prophecy. And I can show how everything up to this point has come true so far, and we are in the era, we are in the time period where Enoch says this is the time where the angels are judged, where where everything is judged. You know, the Messiah comes back, all this stuff, and we are in that time period. So very exciting. I think I'm gonna do that as my first episode of Into the Supernatural. I also have a talk that I'm going to give at an upcoming Prophecy Watchers conference in Colorado Springs. I think it's been announced. I don't know the exact website, but it's probably linked at prophecywatchers.com. Get your tickets, because I'm going to have my books available for sale there. I'm going to be there. I haven't been able to do a conference in years, and I really miss it. I don't miss the flying. I don't like flying. I don't like being on the road either. It's like, which form of anxiety do I want? You know, getting in a car accident, getting in a plane crash. Well, at least in a plane, it goes by faster. If we were to drive to Colorado, that's going to take 2 days. A plane is like, you know, a couple of hours of sheer terror as opposed to 2 days of it. So, but I don't love that aspect. But once I'm there, getting to meet all of you guys, getting to be on stage and just speak to you guys and teach you some stuff, like I really enjoyed that. I haven't been able to do it in years. I've really missed it, and so I'm really excited for this. It'll be in Colorado Springs, and I think it's at the end of June. So probably tickets are already on sale. Check out prophecywatchers.com and see if they are. I don't have specific information on it yet, but when I do, I will let you all know. So, okay, all that being said, thank you so much for joining me. I know it was a longer one today, but I think it's worth it. Hope it was worth it for you too. And if you have any ideas for things that you want to see in future Sharpening Report episodes, let me know. Either in the comments or joshpeckdisclosure@gmail.com. All right, till next time, love you all. Take care and God bless.